What happens when the monster isn't hiding in the dark, but standing right in front of you, wearing a smile, a uniform, or a badge of honor? We are tracking 8 individuals whose decisions didn't just end lives, they destroyed the safety of entire nations. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Before we begin, I have a question for you. Do you believe parents should be held criminally responsible for the actions of their children? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Case number 1 is that of Charles Whitman. On the morning of August 1st, 1966, the University of Texas at Austin looked like a perfect picture of summer. Students were walking to class and meeting friends for lunch. They had no idea that a man was watching them from 300 feet above. This man was someone who seemed to be the best of America. Charles Whitman was an Eagle Scout, a former Marine Corps sharpshooter, and a smart engineering student. He was the kind of young man that parents wanted their daughters to marry. But this is where the betrayal begins. Whitman used his military training and discipline not to protect people, but to hunt them down. The horror actually started the night before. Whitman sat at his typewriter and wrote a letter. He said he was fighting a war inside his own mind and that he did not understand himself anymore. After writing this, he drove to his mother's house and stabbed her to death. He then went back to his own home. He walked into the bedroom where his wife, Kathy, was sleeping and stabbed her 5 times in the heart. He covered her body with sheets and left a note saying he loved her too much to leave her in this cruel world. The next morning, Whitman dressed like a workman in coveralls. He packed a large wooden box with supplies. Inside, he had food, water, and an arsenal of weapons. He had rifles, pistols, a sawed-off shotgun, and 700 rounds of ammunition. He walked into the university building and took the elevator to the top floor. He killed the receptionist and a family of tourists who were in his way. Then, he barricaded the door to the observation deck and got ready. For the next 96 minutes, Whitman turned the university campus into a war zone. His first shots were deadly accurate. He aimed at a pregnant woman named Claire Wilson. The bullet killed her unborn baby instantly. When her boyfriend tried to help her, Whitman shot him too. Panic spread across the campus. It was a very hot day, almost 100 degrees, and the wounded people were trapped on the burning concrete. Anyone who tried to run out to help them became the next target. The police on the ground were helpless against a sniper so high up. Regular citizens actually ran to their trucks to get their own hunting rifles to shoot back at the tower, trying to distract him. The turning point came when 2 police officers, Ramiro Martinez and Houston McCoy, decided they could not wait for backup. Along with a civilian they deputized, they climbed the stairs to the top of the tower. They burst through the door and found Whitman. Martinez fired his revolver, and McCoy fired his shotgun. The terror was finally over. When doctors performed an autopsy on Whitman, they found something shocking. He had a tumor the size of a pecan growing in his brain. It was pressing on the amygdala, the part of the brain that controls fear and emotion. This discovery left the world with a terrifying question that has no easy answer. Was Charles Whitman a monster who chose to kill, or was he a victim of his own broken body? Case number 2 is that of Martin Bryant. Port Arthur in Tasmania is a beautiful place full of history. It is usually quiet and peaceful, but on April 28, 1996, it became the scene of a nightmare. Martin Bryant was a man who lived on the edge of society. He had a low IQ, and people in the town often bullied him or ignored him. He was lonely and acted strangely. The twist in this story is about money. A wealthy woman who felt sorry for him left him a huge fortune. That money could have fixed his life. It could have given him care and happiness. Instead, Bryant used that money to buy high-powered military weapons. The community thought he was just a harmless, odd man, but he was actually preparing for war. On that Sunday afternoon, Bryant drove his yellow Volvo to the popular tourist site. He walked into the Broad Arrow Cafe with a large sports bag. He ordered a meal, sat on the balcony, and ate quietly. He looked like any other tourist enjoying the view. But when he finished eating, he walked back inside the crowded cafe. He put his tray down on a table and pulled out an AR-15 rifle. The next few minutes were horrific. In less than 2 minutes, 20 people were dead or dying inside that small space. Bryant moved through the cafe with a blank look on his face. He was not screaming or shouting in anger. Witnesses said he was calm, almost like a robot. He shot people at close range. He did not care if they were old or young. After leaving the cafe, he went to the parking lot to continue the slaughter. There, he found a mother, Nanette Mykach, running away with her 2 young daughters, aged 3 and 6. She begged him to stop. She told him, "Please don't hurt my babies." Bryant ignored her pleas. He killed the mother first, and then he hunted down the little girls and killed them too. It was a level of cruelty that shocked the entire world. The rampage finally stopped when Bryant barricaded himself inside a nearby guest house called Seascape Cottage. He held the police off for 18 hours. The end came when he set the house on fire. He ran out screaming with his clothes burning, and the police tackled him. When they questioned him later, he did not show any regret. He laughed. He asked the police, "Did I get many?" He thought the whole thing was funny. The judge sentenced Martin Bryant to 35 life sentences, plus another 35 years without any chance of parole. The judge made sure Bryant would die in prison. Because of this tragedy, Australia completely changed its gun laws in just 2 weeks to make sure this never happened again. Bryant wanted to be famous. He wanted attention. But today, he sits alone in a cell, a man who had every chance to live a quiet life, but chose to become a monster instead. Case number 3 is that of Tsung Cho, Virginia. Tech is a large and respected university, a place where young people go to build their futures. But in the spring of 2007, one student was there to destroy futures, not build them. Tsung Cho was known on campus as the Ghost. He almost never spoke to anyone. He wore dark sunglasses inside buildings and walked with his head down. The teachers and students were actually afraid of him. His creative writing assignments were so violent and disturbing that one professor refused to teach him anymore. The university knew he was in trouble. A court had even ordered him to get mental health treatment because he was a danger to himself. But because of strict privacy rules and a system that moved too slowly, nobody stopped him. The red flags were waving everywhere, but the system failed to act. On the morning of April 16th, Cho began his final plan. He started by shooting 2 students in a dormitory, but he did not stop there. He went back to his room to change his clothes. He also mailed a package to a news station. Inside the package were videos and photos of himself posing with hammers and guns, ranting about how he hated rich kids. He blamed the world for his problems. Then, he walked to Norris Hall, a building full of classrooms. Before he fired a shot there, he did something cold and calculated. He used heavy chains to lock the main doors from the inside. He wanted to make sure that once the shooting started, nobody could escape. He walked from room to room, shooting professors and students who had nowhere to run. The terror inside those rooms is hard to imagine. In the middle of this horror, there was a moment of incredible bravery. Professor Livio Librescu was a man who had survived the Holocaust in World War II. When he realized what was happening, he did not run. He used his own body to block the door of his classroom. He held the door shut while Cho tried to push in. Because of his sacrifice, his students had enough time to jump out of the windows to safety. The professor died saving them. The police arrived quickly, but the chains on the doors slowed them down. They had to use tools to break into the building. As soon as Cho heard the police breaking through the doors, he stopped hunting students. He turned his gun on himself and took his own life. 32 innocent people died that day. Cho left behind a manifesto claiming he was a victim, like Jesus Christ, but his actions proved the opposite. He was a man who mistook his own loneliness for persecution. He thought the world was cruel to him, so he decided to be cruel to the world. The tragedy is that people saw the darkness growing inside him for years, but nobody did enough to stop it before the first shot was fired. Case number 4 is that of Anders Behring. Breivik, Norway, is a country famous for peace and safety. It is a place where police officers often do not even carry guns on their hips. But on July 22, 2011, that innocence was shattered by one man. Anders Behring Breivik was a right-wing extremist who hated the government and blamed it for letting immigrants into the country. He spent years planning an attack to punish the nation. The betrayal in this case is sickening because Breivik used a police uniform to trick children. He knew that in a time of crisis, people run toward the police for safety. He used that trust to kill them. The attack happened in two parts. First, Breivik parked a van filled with homemade explosives in the middle of Oslo, right near the government buildings. The bomb went off, killing 8 people and destroying offices. It was chaos, but this was just a distraction. While the police and ambulances rushed to the city center, Breivik drove away to a quiet island called Utoya. Utoya was hosting a summer camp for the youth division of the Labour Party. Hundreds of teenagers were there, camping and learning about politics. When Breivik arrived at the ferry landing, he was dressed as a police officer. He told the staff he was there to secure the island because of the bomb in Oslo. They let him on the boat. Once he reached the island, he called the teenagers over to him. He told them, "Come here, I have important information." When they gathered around him, expecting help, he pulled out his weapons and opened fire. For over an hour, Breivik walked around the small island hunting children. He was calm and cold. He listened to music on his iPod to block out the screams of his victims. Teenagers tried to hide behind rocks, inside tents, and even in the freezing water of the lake. Breivik followed them. He shot people who were already injured. He killed 69 people on that island. Most of them were just kids. The turning point was not a violent shootout. When the real police finally arrived, Breivik did not fight back. He lowered his weapon and surrendered immediately. He did not want to die. He wanted to live so he could stand in a court and tell the world about his hateful beliefs. He saw the trial as his stage. Norway's justice system faced a huge test. They do not have the death penalty. They sentenced him to preventive detention, which means he serves 21 years, but the prison time can be extended by 5 years again and again, for as long as he is considered dangerous. He will likely never be free. Breivik wanted to start a war. He wanted to be a hero for his cause, but Norway defeated him in the best way possible. They did not scream back at him. They locked him in a 3-room cell and stopped talking about him. He wanted to be a martyr. Instead, he became a nobody, silenced by a society that refused to let his hatred change who they are. Case number 5 is that of James Holmes. James Holmes was a young man who seemed to have a brilliant future ahead of him. He was a doctoral student in Colorado studying neuroscience. He spent his days learning exactly how the human brain works, how we think, and how we feel. This makes his crime even more terrifying. He was not an uneducated man acting on impulse. He was a scientist who used his intelligence to plan a massacre. He knew about the human mind, yet he let his own mind fall into total darkness. He told a therapist about his violent thoughts, but once again, the system could not stop him in time. On the night of July 20th, 2012, Holmes prepared for his final act. He dyed his hair bright red and called himself the Joker, mimicking the villain from the Batman movies. He bought a ticket for the midnight premiere of the new movie, The Dark Knight Rises, in the city of Aurora. Hundreds of fans were there, dressed up in costumes, expecting a night of fun and excitement. They thought the man in the gas mask at the front of the theater was just part of the show. But Holmes was not acting. He threw a canister of tear gas into the crowd. As the smoke filled the room and people started to cough, he opened fire. He had a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. He walked up the aisles, shooting people who were trying to crawl away. Bullets went through the walls and hit people in the theater next door. 12 people died that night, and 70 others were injured. It was one of the worst shootings in American history. Holmes had also planned a second attack. Before leaving for the theater, he set up a deadly trap in his own apartment. He rigged explosives and wires to loud music. He hoped that someone would call the police about the noise, and when the officers opened his door, the whole building would blow up. This was meant to pull police away from the theater so he could kill more people. The turn in this case was strange because Holmes did not try to escape. Police found him standing calmly next to his car behind the theater. He did not fight. He surrendered immediately. He even told the officers about the trap in his apartment, which likely saved their lives. In court, Holmes looked strange and detached. He sat with wide, staring eyes, looking like he was in a trance. His lawyers tried to say he was insane and did not know right from wrong, but the jury did not believe him. They saw the months of planning. They saw the purchases of guns and bomb parts. They decided he was evil. not just sick. James Holmes was sentenced to 12 consecutive life terms plus 18 years in prison. He wanted to be a supervillain like in a comic book. But in the real world, there is no glory for killers. Today he is just a lonely man in a concrete box, forgotten by the world he tried to destroy. Case number 6 is that of Adam Lanza. There is an unwritten rule in nature that parents protect their children. But in the case of Adam Lanza, this rule was twisted in a terrible way. Lanza was a 20-year-old man who lived like a ghost in his mother's large house in Newtown, Connecticut. He was extremely isolated. He spent all his time in his bedroom with blacked-out windows playing violent video games. He almost never spoke to his mother, Nancy, even though they lived together. They communicated by email from different rooms. Nancy was worried about him, but she made a fatal mistake. She was a gun enthusiast, and she tried to bond with her son by taking him to shooting ranges. The betrayal here is tragic. The very weapons she bought to connect with her son were the ones he used to kill her. On the morning of December 14, 2012, Lanza walked into his mother's bedroom while she was still sleeping. He shot her 4 times in the head. He did not scream or fight with her. He simply executed the only person who had tried to look after him. Then, he took her car and drove to Sandy Hook Elementary School. What happened next is one of the darkest moments in history. Lanza shot his way through the locked glass doors of the school. The sound of the glass shattering echoed through the halls. The principal and the school psychologist ran toward the noise to protect the students, and they were the first to die. Lanza then walked into 2 first-grade classrooms. These were children who were only 6 and 7 years old. In less than 5 minutes, he fired 156 shots. He killed 20 children and 6 educators. Inside the classrooms, the teachers showed incredible bravery. They tried to hide the children in cupboards and bathrooms. Some teachers used their own bodies as shields, hugging the students to protect them from the bullets. They died trying to save the lives of children who were not their own. The turn in this case happened very quickly. As soon as Lanza heard the police sirens and the officers entering the building, he stopped. He did not try to fight the police. He did not try to escape. He went into a classroom and shot himself. The entire attack lasted less than 11 minutes, but it left a wound that will never heal. Because he died, there was no trial and no sentencing. But the most frustrating part of this case is the silence. Unlike other killers who leave videos or manifestos explaining why they did it, Lanza left nothing. He had smashed his computer hard drive before the attack, destroying any evidence of his motives. He took his reasons to the grave. We are left only with the broken hearts of 20 families who sent their little kids to school on a Friday morning, never expecting that a young man's untreated mental problems would turn a joyful classroom into a place of death. It forces us to ask a hard question. How much darkness can hide inside one house before it spills out and destroys the world around it? Case number 7 is that of Elliot Rodger. Elliot Rodger lived a life that most people would dream of having. He was the son of a successful Hollywood director. He lived in a beautiful college town near the beach in Santa Barbara, California. He drove a black BMW, wore expensive designer clothes, and never had to worry about money. But despite having everything the world tells us to want, Rodger was miserable. He believed he was a victim. He was angry because he did not have a girlfriend. He felt that women owed him love and attention, and he hated them for ignoring him. The twist here is strange. A young man who called himself the Supreme Gentleman was actually filled with a deep, violent hatred. He believed he was better than everyone else, yet he felt completely powerless. On May 23, 2014, Rodger uploaded a video to YouTube titled Retribution. In the video, he sat in his car and calmly explained his plan to punish women for rejecting him. He promised to slaughter people on the streets of Isla Vista. It was a chilling warning, but by the time anyone saw it, the violence had already started. The attack began in his own apartment. Before he fired a single gun, Rodger stabbed his 2 roommates and their friend to death. This part of the crime was quiet and brutal. He then got into his BMW with 3 semi-automatic pistols and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. He drove to the Alpha Phi sorority house. He walked up to the front door and knocked loudly. He planned to kill every woman inside. Terrifyingly, if they had opened that door, dozens would have died. But nobody answered. Furious, Roger shot 3 young women who were walking on the street nearby, killing 2 of them. Roger then drove through the town, shooting at anyone he saw. He fired at pedestrians on the sidewalks and even hit a cyclist with his car. It was chaotic. He wasn't hunting specific people anymore. He was at war with the whole world. Police officers arrived quickly and engaged him in a gunfight. Roger sped away, crashing his expensive car into a parked vehicle. The turn came instantly. When police approached the wrecked BMW, they found Roger dead inside. He had shot himself in the head. He didn't want to face the consequences of his actions. He took the coward's way out. Because he died, there was no trial. However, Elliot Rodger left behind something more dangerous than a weapon. He left a 137-page manifesto explaining his hateful beliefs. Sadly, this document became famous online. It turned him into a hero for a group of angry men known as incels, involuntary celibates. These men celebrate him and call him a saint. Roger wanted to prove he was a powerful god among men. Instead, he died alone in a smashed car, proving that hatred doesn't make you strong. It just destroys everything around you, including yourself. Case number 8 is that of Dylan Storm Roof. On the evening of June 17, 2015, the Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, was open for its weekly Bible study. This church is one of the oldest and most important black churches in America. It has always been a place of safety and love. Dylan Roof, a 21-year-old white man, walked into the church. The people inside did exactly what they had been taught to do. They welcomed him. They offered him a seat next to the pastor. They handed him a Bible. For an hour, Roof sat with these people and prayed with them. This is the ultimate betrayal. He looked into their eyes, saw their kindness, and still decided to murder them because of the color of their skin. Roof was a self-radicalized white supremacist. He had spent his time online reading hateful websites that told lies about black people. He believed that he needed to start a race war to save the white race. When the prayer group closed their eyes for a final prayer, Roof stood up. He pulled out a .45 caliber Glock pistol. One of the men tried to calm him down, but Roof replied, "I have to do this. You rape our women and you're taking over our country." He opened fire. The shooting was calm and methodical. Roof fired 77 rounds. He reloaded his gun 5 times. The victims tried to hide under tables, but there was no escape. 9 people died that night, including the senior pastor and an 87-year-old woman. Roof purposely left one woman alive. He told her he was sparing her so she could tell the world what he had done. He wanted fame. He wanted to be the leader of a new revolution. The turn in this case did not happen in a violent shootout. Roof drove away and escaped into the night. The next morning, a florist named Debbie Dills was driving to work when she saw a black car that matched the description on the news. She noticed the driver had a distinct bowl-cut hairstyle. She called the police and followed him until they could catch up. When police pulled him over, Roof surrendered without a fight. In a detail that made many people angry, the police officers bought him food from Burger King because he complained that he was hungry. Dylan Roof was the first person in United States history to face the death penalty for federal hate crimes. During his trial, he did not show any sadness or regret. He even represented himself in court so he could stop his lawyers from saying he was mentally ill. He wanted everyone to know that he was sane and that he was proud of what he did. He even wore shoes with racist symbols drawn on them to court. The jury sentenced him to death. At his sentencing, the families of the victims did something incredible. They stood up and told him, "I forgive you." Roof wanted to start a war between the races. He wanted to spread hate, but the families proved that love is stronger than hate. Today, Dylan Roof sits on death row, waiting for his execution. He is not a soldier or a hero. He is just a reminder that evil exists, but it cannot win against a community that refuses to be broken.